It's very easy to get derailed and think like my consuming one plastic bottle is not going to change anything. It will.
The fight is not really between making money, emboldening entrepreneurs. It is actually the fight for managing the greed.
When you have such a massive problem, it's very tough to say that my one investment can actually change things. A large part of it is the belief that it can change things.
How we use resources is being rethought of.
If you want to have no hunger, no poverty, no equity by 2030, the world has to only give up 1% of its growth to deliver that number. If the whole world, all 7 billion people start consuming at the same level, we require 2 Earths today.
The cleanest form of energy is the energy we don't consume. India is a water scarce nation, but when you think about water, 60-70% of agriculture uses India's groundwater resources.
One thing that the Ukraine-Russia war has brought out, food security is a huge problem. Europe almost had no wheat. Middle East is extremely concerned. And India, along with Africa, probably has a great potential opportunity to offer to the world food security.
If you care about making money and you're wondering where smart capital is headed next, then this episode's for you. I've brought together three of the sharpest minds in India's impact investment landscape, people who are betting big on where the world is actually going, not where it's been. These people don't just move capitals, they shift systems, and they've turned profits into purpose. Whether you're an investor, a founder, or just financially curious, this is the ultimate impact investment episode you didn't even know you needed. Karan, Vineet, Aakash, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Sustainability with Shreya. And I'm so excited because this is a space I am personally invested in, no pun intended. But there's a lot that I want to learn, and I'm sure there's a lot that the audience wants to know about impact investing, what it really is, and how they can get their hands dirty or clean, for that matter. So, for starters, I want to start off by asking, for anyone listening to this, why should they care? Why should they listen to this conversation? How is this going to change the way they think about money, their finances, and why is it the time to think about impact investment now more than ever?
Hi, I'm Aakash. I'm a partner at Peak Sustainability Ventures. We're an early stage climate fund focused on everything in sustainability and looking to accelerate India's sustainability transition. Well, I would say if you care about where the world is headed and the next 10 years will be sort of defining that, then you have to get involved in this space.
Why is world unequal? This is actually a question that most people ask themselves. Entrepreneurs have been solving big problems. Imagine if the best minds are solving the problem of an unequal world. And that can only happen in case you allow those entrepreneurs, embolden them to unleash their energy and their thinking to the world. And that's what we do. So if you really want to change the world and do so with being an entrepreneur, then my name is Vineet Rai. I'm the founder of Aavishkaar Group, and we have been investing in releasing the passion and energy of such emboldened entrepreneurs to change the world.
I'm Karan. I'm venture principal at Green Frontier Capital. We are looking to invest in what we call the green frontier, which is the next 30 years of economic growth being driven by startups or companies that are fundamentally green by nature. The reason why I think that people actually should care about this today is that for us and for me, impact is climate. That's the core focus of what we do. This is the largest existential crisis facing humanity today, facing all of us. And as investors, as the young generation, the massive shift of wealth to the young generation that's going to take place over the next 30, 40 years, we have a chance to actually use those dollars to make a difference, and not just make a difference by investing in emboldened entrepreneurs who are looking to really change the world, but by really catalyzing change for society and being part of that, and using those dollars to actually voice ourselves more than just talking about it.
That's actually the best way of changing the world. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to be so bullish about climate solutions. And I wish a lot of people were looking at these solutions instead of funding industries that are destroying our planet as we know it. But so often people confuse impact investing with either philanthropy, charity, greenwashing, or people think it's just about ESG. So, what exactly is impact investing? And what is the harshest myth you'd bust about it?
I think impact investing is investing. That's what it is. It's just investing. You're investing in a business that's essentially profitable, or will be generating profits very soon. It's investing. It is a new wave of businesses today where which are solving real problems. And if I had to actually break it down, India is on the cusp of a significant economic growth. We're going to be 4 times the size of our economy in the next 15 years. And essentially, what that means in terms of just the climate is that our emission per capita is probably going to skyrocket from where we are today. So this is a huge economic opportunities that as we grow, we're able to grow sustainably. We're able to adopt practices, and India has historically been leapfrogging a lot of global trends. Uh, take hybrid cars, for example. It never was a thing in India. Today it's EVs. And we sort of moved from IC to EV without doing the hybrid leg. So today, impact, or rather investing for a purpose or investing for the climate, it's not just you putting money where you think it's going to do good. It's also a great profit making opportunity for your savings or for your investment.
So I think if, of course, taking forward from where you left, Karan, impact investing is investing for sure, but investing where you actually measure the intent of the person who's making that. So you have to stand up and say that my intent is to make a difference. And that difference, I will not only hold myself accountable while I'm talking to the entrepreneur and giving them the capital, but also report it back. So you need to be held accountable for what you claim you're doing. Rest of it is what you're trying to do is find an entrepreneur, help them actually scale up and bring their ideas to life. In the process, generate returns while generating impact. And that impact is equally important right at the time of screening. So if there are two entrepreneurs who come to you, both are going to generate returns for you. The one that actually can definitively prove to you that in the screening process that they will deliver, they have the intent to deliver impact, and they are willing to be measured against it. That's how you do it. Now, of course, philanthropy, there is no return there. So you are basically trying to deliver impact, and if you are an evolved philanthropy, you would actually measure your impact and report it as well. While in investing, you may deliver impact, but that is not because you intended to do it. For example, all telecommunication companies deliver massive impact, but they didn't set out to deliver impact. So I think the distinction here is you will be held accountable for what you claim. And that's really the distinction. Sometimes that would mean that you might actually not invest in some companies that investors can. But on the other side, on the flip side, that's the biggest advantage you bring to the table.
Yeah. I think firstly, what's really interesting about today is so many people care a lot more about not just making money, but also having a higher purpose. And so I think that's why this nexus of impact investing or climate investing has really taken off, because money can't be the only incentive. And now I think we've transitioned to a world where people really care about where they spend their time, and it's not just about making money. I think the second thing that some of my co-panelists have mentioned is that honestly, to build the sort of a business that makes an incredible amount of impact, you have to build a sustainable business. And that means thinking about profits, thinking about sort of margins, building a business that can scale, because at the end of the day, that's really what's going to create very large scale impact. So what we look at is both high commercial returns as well as very large climate impact. And if both those criteria aren't met, then then we won't invest. And I think that's how many impact investors look at it now. It's evolved from sort of 10 years ago, where one was choosing sort of impact or investment. Now it's much more a question of these are the focus areas that we look at, be it education, healthcare. We focus entirely on sustainability, and that's everything from energy, water, food systems, biodiversity, but making sure that we're investing in real, scalable, innovative businesses that can truly make an impact. And so I think the distinction is really what sectors you focus on. Outside of that, you're investing in strong businesses that are innovative, that can scale.
They're not mutually exclusive. It's not impact or investment. They can go hand in hand. And Vineet, as you mentioned, it's not about giving money away. You're actually expecting returns. All of you are expecting returns. So what is the difference between impact investing and investing in that sense?
So I think, one, actually, when you are making an investment, you are identifying an entrepreneur, you're giving them capital, and you are trying to solve a problem. Sometimes that problem could actually be solving for the rich. When you're solving the problem for the rich, which actually is a very important component of the community, but a very small part of the community, then you are doing investing. When you are actually trying to solve the problem for the large majority, which comes from the lower economic strata, while probably serving the rich, then you can actually become an impact investor. And as I said at the start of this podcast, that impact investing is really trying to make a world more equal, while investing is to make world more unequal generally. More so because you're focused on shareholders' value creation, which need not necessarily align with other values that you may have or your money may carry. We just heard from two of my colleagues about sustainability. If there is no world tomorrow, then it doesn't matter what returns you generate. So really what we are trying to do through impact investing is we are trying to have this world stay 100 generations down the line. And that would require impact investing to actually subsume investing into it, not the other way around. Right now, impact investing is the tail. Investing is the world, is the dog of the world. We want the tail to wag the dog and not the dog to wag the tail. That's really what impact investing intends to do. It's still small, but with the support of those who are out there, with the new generation with capital who wants their children to survive, you would need to actually back people like us who have been struggling for the last 20, 25 years with the idea to balance and make the world more equal. So,
That's beautiful.
I'll still say impact investing is investing. And I'm just going to say that, look, today, the biggest profit-making opportunity that you would have, and look, you as capital are going to look for the most profitable opportunities at the end of it. The most profit-making opportunity that you have over the next 20, 30, whatever years, at least for the next 20 years, is in the green space. These are this space is disrupting industries. We're seeing a disruption in the fossil fuel industry. We're seeing a disruption in the energy industry. We're seeing a disruption in mobility. We're seeing a disruption in what Aakash also mentioned in the water space, right? How we use resources is being rethought of. How we repurpose resources is being thought of. So these industries that have lasted for like 200 odd years are now being attacked by new businesses, new ideas that are coming in and essentially changing the rules of the game, changing the boundaries within which you play with. How is that not a profit-making opportunity? And that is investing. You would choose the right thing, while at the same time, you are going to be able to see that impact. You will see societies change. You will see. I still believe that we have hope, though a lot of news says that we don't. But I still believe we have hope for a better future, and we need that capital today. We need to catalyze billions of dollars. India needs about $100 billion of inflows of a green capital coming into the country, debt and equity both, to be able to decarbonize itself over the next 15 years. We're nowhere close to that. We're nowhere close to that, right? So this is, And liquidity drives asset values. So just imagine the amount, if you come in early today or if you take part in the opportunity today, the amount that you stand to gain by just investing in these businesses.
So just to give correct numbers, 600 billion is what India needs every year for India to deliver on its sustainable development goals. Every year, the world requires 2.5 trillion every year, trillion every year from 2018. So we wrote a book, we wrote a report called Better Business, Better World. Paul Polman was the chair, and I was one of the commissioners. We wrote that report. It was $30 trillion is what was needed. The global capital pool. So and just to give you an idea, the philanthropic capital / developmental capital / impact capital globally on an annual basis is roughly 280 billion. So the World Banks of the world, all the donor capital put together, including every foundation that you can name, put together actually amounts for around 260, $280 billion. So the gap is around 90%. Now it looks very large number, but if you look at the global capital pool, that's around 400 trillion. So there is no dearth of capital. $400 trillion of global capital growing at roughly 2.5%, 3% per year. Now, if that capital just shuns or gives up growth by 1%, there is enough capital in the world to change the world like it has never existed before. So if you want to have no hunger, no poverty, no equity by 2030, roughly 30 trillion would have helped, and the world has to only give up 1% of its growth to deliver that number. So it's possible. It's possible on an annual basis. But whether the pools of capital that actually are sitting there have the risk appetite or desire to give up that 1% to have a world that actually is sustainable is the real. And that's why I call the fight is not really between making money, emboldening entrepreneurs. It is actually the fight for managing the greed. We are faced with the question whether cutting open the golden egg-laying goose today is more satisfying or letting the goose lay its eggs over a period of time. And then impact investing is really letting the goose lay eggs on time whenever it feels like and not cutting its stomach. And I think all the three of us are saying the same thing. It's important for the world to understand that if probably most of us will be dead by the time the world actually reaches a stage of non-existence if it doesn't change. But most of you, your children, most of those who are listening on the other side, your children, would probably be there to face that non-existence. So I think it is not for this generation or probably the next. It is actually the third generation that will probably face the biggest struggle.
So from what I understand, we have the money. As you said, it just takes 1%. Like we just need to move 1% of global wealth into this. But we're obviously subsidizing the fossil fuel industry by trillions. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's trillions of dollars of subsidies going into things that are actively and rapidly destroying our planet, our future. Not just our planet. I'm literally talking about our survival. What is lacking? If the money is there, if the solutions are there, why is the impact investment space as small as you said it is for the space to be struggling for as long as it has, or for it to not receive the kind of capital injection that it should be getting, and for us to be acting as urgently? What is missing? Where's the gap?
I think it's an interesting question. The world has to, all the people in the world have to feel the same thing at the same time. That's 7 billion people. It's difficult to make 70 people to agree to one thinking. So making 7 billion people to see it the same way is not easy. I think there are very strong leaders across the globe who have 3-4 points of view. Some don't believe that climate change is a reality. Some do believe climate change is a reality, but have their own compulsions because others have exploited, and we have a right to exploit as much. Just to give you an idea, if the world reaches the consumption level of mineral consumption level of Europe, then we require 2 Earth today. If the whole world, all 7 billion people start consuming at the same level at which Europe consumes, we require 2 Earth today. Now, that's actually a very strong statement that certain parts of the world has actually outlived the relevance for the Earth to exist itself. Now, in a world like that, where we see risks of non-existence from different light on different ways, it is very difficult to actually come to an agreement easily. I think if you see what was 10 years back, the discourse, and today, the changes are significant in terms of discourse and capital. 20 years back, there was no discourse, no capital. Last 10 years, there is discourse and capital. In last 5 years, there has been far more growth in capital that is actually trying to accept and challenge this status quo. And my gut feel is in over next 10 years, this will actually become the mainstream with the arguments that you just made, Karan. So I think we need more aggressive leadership coming from us, not apologetic, but more aggressive leadership. We need to also seek very strong commitment from the new generation towards it. And I'm 100% sure most of the young folks, and Shreya, you're part of that young folks who want to make sure that the world is a sustainable place. So that commitment is increasing. Probably the education is playing a role. But I think it is the top 10% of the world which has to be convinced that saving the world is probably more important than saving your money.
I love that.
It's a
Yeah.
mindset change. We need to change mindsets, and it starts at home. It starts from us. You can just make a small change in your own mindset in the way you consume. Uh, think about every choice that you make for yourself, for your house. Are you making the right choice? Are you start with buying the right products? Are you doing that? Make small changes, and that catalyzes to the point that Vineet like also made. People in power need to sort of also need to think about these problems more deeply, and this is where us and most democratic nations today, most nations today like are democratic in some way, is that we have the ability to effect change through the way we vote. So are we voting for the right people? Are we taking those responsibilities? And today it is far more important than it was maybe 10 years ago. So change starts at home, like what our parents used to say. So start those changes at home, change the mindset. Once you start changing the mindset, there's this beautiful thing about community uh, coming together. There was some research done about how once everyone is on a similar energy frequency, you're able to sort of that spreads faster, and people like around you'll see change catalyzing like around you as well. People around you start making the right choices as well. So we in our own, and it's very easy to get derailed and think like, you know what, my consuming one plastic bottle is not going to change anything. It will. Don't do it, right? And make that choice consciously. Tell people about why you're making those choices, and you'll see change catalyze like around you as well. And that's how it begins. Beyond just investing in these sectors, we can also support these sectors or support these industries by just catalyzing changes in the way we consume, in the way that we vote, in the way that we just think about the planet in general.
Yeah. I think like you said, behavioral change is undoubtedly one of the biggest sort of tools we have at our disposal. IFC is famous for saying the cleanest form of energy is the energy we don't consume. That's true for any scarce resource, including water. And a lot of it begins with just that mindset shift. For instance, just with regards to water, I mean, India is a water scarce nation. 21 cities in India will run out of water by 2030. And we have some of the worst water quality in the world. But when you think about water, it's priced at a minimum or it's sort of subsidized and it's viewed as a public good. That's why 60-70% of agriculture uses India's groundwater resources. We have 18% of the world's population, but 4% of groundwater resources. So when you think about these sort of dynamics, then you realize that actually the best way to start thinking about resource utilization is by just changing your mindset. And sometimes it requires pricing it. I think one really important aspect about this space and kind of what's missing is you are you're competing for dollars and time effectively, and you're competing with other sectors in VC, like anything related to tech, robotics, AI, many of which we actually think play into these spaces and sustainability. But in general, it's also viewed as a very large existential problem that, like Karan mentioned, people aren't sure whether they can actually make a difference. And when you have such a massive problem like this, it's very tough to say that, okay, my one investment in one company can actually change things. And so a large part of it is the belief that it can change things. And if more people start thinking about that, and more than just sort of the individual, the corporate, the government, various other stakeholders, they all need to come to play here. So I think, like Vineet said, it's certainly changed a lot from where it was even 5 or 10 years ago. And hopefully that catalyzes exponentially over the next 5 to 7 years. Because honestly, despite sort of 3 generations down seeing the effects, this generation will be the one to actually change things. If we don't do it in this generation, then, I mean, honestly, they can do all they can, but it'll be too late. We'll already have surpassed certain planetary boundaries. And so in many ways, like very well, certain things are not sort of, certain things are binary. Once you pass a planetary boundary, you can't scale it back. It's gone, it's done. And so this is kind of why it's such a sort of existential threat, but also very important for stakeholders today to start thinking about.
This asset class, the impact investing, the sustainability investing, the climate investing, the green investing, it's creating those return profiles to what traditional investing is creating in the same asset class. But at the same time, what you get additional is the fact that your money is actually going into doing good. Today at Green Frontier, and we measure impact on our portfolio on a monthly basis. Today, we stand at potentially 13 million trees planted in terms of impact from just the 11 portfolio companies that we have. 13 million trees, if I have to put into perspective, that's 15,000 hectares of potential forest land that could have been developed in India. Put that into perspective, the Delhi-Bombay new highway was 12,000 hectares of land that was used, that was basically mowed down for the highway. We're at about 15,000. If I have to just put into perspective what impact that I've generated, I can just say, hey, listen, I've essentially greenified the entire Delhi-Bombay new highway and more. So that's what you're getting in more than just return on your money.
I would sort of echo both of what has been said in that I don't think that this sector you do need to trade off as such on returns and impact. And I think you've actually seen some examples of some of these companies really scale up. Timelines may differ, but I honestly think maybe that's just related to the business that is being built. For instance, we were early investors in a company called Wari Energies when it was 300 megawatts. Now it's 14 gigawatts and one of India's largest solar panel manufacturers. Invested at Series A, now it's gone public. And that was in 2015 to 2024. So I think sometimes you see these success stories, but there are many others. And I think it's very, very important to highlight these success stories across our portfolios and many others, because that's honestly what inspires a lot of entrepreneurs to start building. And it's more than just some of these very large technology or consumer companies that we hear a lot about in the market. And if you can promote some of these impact stories or sustainability stories, it can make a huge difference. We invested in a company called Indira Water. They've treated 4 billion of wastewater for corporates to reuse or safely dispose of. And they've also sort of raised capital from some very large investors. And so I think highlighting these stories more and the fact that there is money to be made, as well as a very, very high level of impact, is incredibly important when sort of trying to get more interest in this space.
Absolutely. And I think we do need to amplify more of these success stories, because we just hear of bubbles being burst and people just being scared to enter this space. A lot of that has happened in the alternative protein space, with Impossible, with Beyond, because the market just got saturated and everyone was just afraid of entering that space for that matter.
Yeah, I think so. First, we need to understand that we are talking about a very small number of stories, and because we are in an early stage market, because the stories are limited, therefore every bust is actually seen as very personal. Let's take example of microfinance. I started investing in microfinance in 2001. Uh, the total India's microfinance story was roughly 100 crores. Today, so we are talking about money being lent to poor women in remote parts of India. I have seen that journey from 100 crore to 4 lakh crore. Now, that's actually a significant scale. We are talking about 10 crore, 9 odd crores women actually borrowing on a daily, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, borrowing 4 lakh crore, paying roughly 23-24% interest, and generating businesses for their families. And this is being done through hundreds of microfinance institutions. Some of them are listed and are banks. So, for example, I was the first check in Equitas, Small Finance Bank, Utkarsh, Suryodaya, Credit Grameen. We were the first check in all of them. Now, all these companies have gone from zero to listed companies, very credibly supporting the people who are borrowing from them. Uh, there are lots of negative stories that you hear about microfinance, but that's largely coming from one or two isolated incidents. When you're dealing with 10 crore people, you will have risks that you cannot isolate those risks. You cannot have no bad stories. We need to learn to deal with media. We need to learn to deal with regulators. We need to actually educate everybody in this system about why this is creating value. Not only do we create actually value and work with tens of crores of women, we are also creating lakhs and lakhs of jobs in rural India, because it is another woman who is actually going and delivering that loan. Now, where would you actually find an opportunity to serve a client at the same time create jobs in those areas? Otherwise, where will Bombay and Bangalore host these people? I mean, how many people can you allow? So I think impact investing is also creating jobs and livelihoods where people live, and it's difficult for people to understand that. So in an ecosystem that we are building is critical and important, and telling these stories, regaling people with the stories, both in terms of positivity as well as value creation, and giving them the confidence that whatever negative you hear is actually after all the positives you created. So one rare negative does not tarnish all the big positive work that has been done, and that you can actually generate significant upside irrespective while delivering significant impact. Both are outcomes, so they are not inputs. Input is actually a great entrepreneur with a great vision to solve a great complex problem.
That's beautiful. I do want to talk about Blue Smart just because you mentioned that, and that's something that's happened quite recently and it's shaken the ecosystem. What are the lessons here? Does that mean, and what are the lessons here? How does that affect the electric mobility space? Is that space still bettable? Or was it a hype? And what does this mean for EVs in India?
Let me address that. Um, Today, as an early stage investor, would I still bet on the EV ecosystem? I definitely will, but I think it's past the stage at which I would probably want to invest in. We started taking bets in the EV sector early 2020-21, and that was just about the time when we saw that growth actually happening. Today, the mobility or the EV space is matured, and it's good to see that it's matured, because now you're seeing later stage capital come in. You're seeing these companies grow into larger institutions, attracting now global capital like as well. It is unfortunate with everything that's going on, but I think does that, as Vineet was saying, right, there is one thing that sort of tends to stand out like a sore thumb. Does this sector become unbettable? Absolutely not. The economics today of running an electric vehicle far outseed the economics of you running an ICE vehicle. And a large part of that is because the storage, the battery costs of those vehicles have dropped 60%. In 2021, I remember having debates with people on whether they would buy an electric vehicle like an electric vehicle 4-wheeler for their home. And it was like, does it make sense me spending 5 lakhs extra, 10 lakhs extra for an EV when it doesn't really make sense? I'm using it to the office and back every day. Today, look at it. I mean, every third, fourth, fifth car that I see on the road is an EV. And people today are making a conscious choice to actually buy electric vehicles. Policy is supporting that as well. Delhi government recently, last week, just came out with a policy saying that from the end of this year, they want most of the 2 and 3 wheelers that are going to be sold to be electric only. People with two ICE cars will not be allowed to register their third car like as an ICE. So it's not just the regulations also pushing it, it's also the fact that it is a cheaper choice. And that's what I like about the green space as well, is that it never is a compromise. And it never should be. I shouldn't be like a tree hugger to be someone who wants to really make a conscious choice. Today it makes economic sense, and that is the EV sector today. It makes economic sense.
It has to.
Yeah.
I would so I mean, I guess regarding this particular company, I think it's much more of a idiosyncratic story as opposed to a view on the broader space. And I would say, and I don't want to talk too much about this, but rather EVs in general. But this one I think relates more to like partially what Vineet was saying about building good businesses, corporate governance, diligence, that kind of stuff. But I think as it pertains to the EV space, it really shouldn't give the impression that, okay, this is unfundable. It's a great sort of way that a consumer can get involved in sustainability in general. Buying an EV car is clearly a conscious decision. At Peak, I think we have a slightly different take on this space. We had done an investment in EVs in 2017 called Ion Energy, which it did well. And it got acquired. We sold our stake, and that was kind of at the beginnings of this sort of journey of EVs really taking off, and that was in the battery management system space. I think today, one or two of the things that we see is that it's not solving or addressing sort of India's primary energy needs. I think it's very good because it's showing that consumer preferences are changing for the better and more sustainable. But today, India's grid is largely fueled by coal, around 80% of the grid. And so in many ways, these EVs are not being charged with sort of green or clean energy. It's being charged with coal. And I think looking at sort of the embodied carbon of building a car itself ends up meaning that perhaps the green aspect of it is less green. But I think it's very positive to see that society is moving towards a place where people are opting for an EV
Still a
rather
step
than
forward,
IC.
I believe, rather than a
Exactly.
fossil powered
Exactly.
car, even considering the grid.
Slightly different view to what like Aakash says, and like while I respect his views on this, I think yes, today we do have thermal power, which powers most of our which powers like our nation. 60% of it is thermal. But the fact is that how long is it going to take to convert that into renewables versus potentially also moving transport, which is a significant emitter of greenhouse gases, to green. So the impact actually gets pronounced as we greenify the grid as well, and it starts getting significantly better. Today, an electric vehicle in itself, over its life, is better on a whole in terms of emissions, total emissions, including embodied carbon that is used. There are battery technologies which are being developed using lesser rare minerals. We've moved from NMCs to LFPs because of that. It uses lesser rare minerals. Lithium is being recycled. That's an industry that's also coming up very soon. So with all of these things, you can't look at impact in just an isolation. It is, like Aakash was also saying, planetary boundaries. One boundary you breach, it has knock-on effects on other boundaries. You start solving for one problem, it will have knock-on effects like on other problems too. So yes, I mean, EVs in its isolation is not just the only problem we need to solve. We need to solve 10 other problems. This is one of them. And today, it is an economic choice. Profit over here trumps purpose because it is an economic choice, but it is also better.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, just to respond to that. So, while I completely agree with that notion, I think part of the point was that one shouldn't necessarily promote, okay, see, in practicality, one will have an IC along with an EV or buy a two-wheeler or four-wheeler. And I think part of the point is let's also encourage other forms of transportation, more public transportation,
Absolutely.
I would
or
love
Absolutely.
that.
better
I'd love
forms
Yeah,
of
a
no,
more
we need more
walkable
public
city,
transportation,
a
obviously.
more
And I think the second point being around allocating dollars of capital. Now, sort of in many of these aggregator players or in EVs, one can make a very, very substantial difference in certain hard to decarbonize sectors, or sort of thinking about like the steel or cement industry and things like that. And so part of it was also kind of a capital allocation thing. And where can you make the biggest bang for your buck effectively as it pertains to sustainability?
And I think, in my view, EV is actually is on the path where it will actually become the dominating mode of, so e-mobility will become dominating. And I don't think so Blue, Smart or Gensol is really anything to do with electric vehicles or electric mobility or e-mobility. It's actually a governance problem. It's also a problem or a lesson for most of the investors and the founders and entrepreneurs about how not to actually be seen or run a business. So I think I would see this challenge that has emerged more as a challenge for us as to not be a role model in this form. So we would not like entrepreneurs to actually get so excited about their success before they have reached anywhere in terms of success that diverting funds or actually misusing capital which has been raised by you for any other purpose other than the purpose it has been raised, not having governance of the quality, not being transparent about running your business, etc., are fairly serious challenges that the entire investing sector is facing. This is again a place where investing and impact investing become one and the same. And I was always hopeful that those who are actually coming into space that we define as impact investing will hold themselves to a higher moral ground. Unfortunately, we have not seen enough of that. And therefore, those who are actually coming in, whether it is e-mobility or in green financing or in impact businesses, need to ask themselves this question whether they genuinely actually stand for something beyond capital returns. I think the morality aspect of it is becoming, the demand on morality is quite high, not just from people who are starting a business that is on the impact side, but to starting any other business. And this is actually a call to the whole society in India. We need to really discourage any kind of behavior that is not in line with the right behavior or good behavior. And we need to really come down hard on those who behave like that. This is true for us, and I think our political leadership, our corporate leadership, our societal leadership, investors, founders, they all need to actually hold themselves accountable for the behavior that we carry out in the way we actually do things in public, trying to break the line, try to actually overtake, trying to be undisciplined on the road. This actually is a call to the whole society, not just to an entrepreneur or an individual. There is enough and more. If you go on LinkedIn, I have myself actually written, because I was one of the guys who was potentially would have been an early investor in Blue Smart. We decided to sit out of it. But not because I had any clairvoyance or I had any premonition of something like this happening. We took a business call to not invest. Remember that intent can get corrupted over a period of time. And I think this is another problem. How do you actually make sure greed does not overpower your social values? And I think this goes back to what we teach. How are we actually educating our children? And what is it that society actually respects? I think it's a soul searching time for the entire startup ecosystem, but not just the startup ecosystem, the investors and entrepreneurs, but the whole Indian society. Why is it that we are seeing so many bad behaviors, both from the mainstream entrepreneurs as well as impact entrepreneurs?
I want to get to where the capital is flowing in India right now. What is the current landscape? What is hot? What is the hype? What is here to stay? What sectors should people be looking at?
Happy to. We're very excited on just anything related to sustainability, especially where India is today and where it's going to go in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that is why you're seeing climate funds in this space. And I think more will come. And honestly, we welcome more capital because these are very large, complex problems. I would say some of the most exciting spaces for us, energy storage. We have now reaching around 100 gigawatts of solar installed solar capacity and wind, potentially nuclear. But these are, I mean, at least for solar and wind, these are intermittent sources of energy. And we need to think about energy storage, be it through batteries, be it through hydrogen, things like that. And so one very important area is, I mean, obviously renewables and solar technology, next gen solar technology, but also energy storage and anything related to that. Secondly, waste to energy. India produced a lot of biomass. A lot of people are talking about biochar now and any forms related to that. I think the more we can think about self-sustainable resources, India really needs to think about energy security. We import 80% of our mobility-related energy needs. In a world where political dynamics are changing quite rapidly, India really needs to think about energy security and how we can sort of be self-sufficient. Water is a key area of focus, has been since we did our first investment in 2009. And that is something I think people are not thinking about. And it's such an essential part of life, honestly, and the single most important resource that I think it does not get anywhere near as much credit as it should. And I think lastly, sort of anything related to sort of biodiversity, carbon sequestration, and alternate forms of that in a more efficient manner as it pertains to hard to decarbonize sectors like steel, cement, concrete, green buildings, are all areas of interest. So that's a lot, but I think that's equally promising for a lot of people that want to build here.
What are you bullish on?
Look, I've had conversations with a lot of family offices. Traditionally, what they believe in India is, or what they've been investing in India is largely consumer-facing businesses. That's a no-brainer given how consumerism in India is increasing, and also given the rapid rise in incomes that we're seeing. It does make very intuitive sense. I think what I like is there is a shift towards a lot of investing that's happening in conscious consumerism, in conscious brands, food brands, services, etc. that are really coming out in a lot of family offices today, looking at it not just because they are they're green products or whatever, but because just the economics make sense. The You have a very large total addressable market. You have consumers really demanding these products because of that. So it does make sense. As an investor in the green space, what really excites me is like the next 3-4, maybe the next like 12-18 months, I'm seeing a huge amount of disruption, like Aakash said, in the energy sector. Potentially looking to do some stuff there. Materials is looking exciting. New materials, repurposing materials is looking like a very exciting space as well. So those will be the areas where we potentially will look to actually do some deals. And part of our focus is also sustainable lifestyle. So we're one of the few, like I think, few climate funds which have invested in deals that are also consumer facing. There are businesses that are actually making product that are better for you, and at a price point where you're not really compromising on paying like any premiums because you're making a sustainable choice. So we are also looking at consumer facing businesses for products that are actually good for you and at the same time good for the environment?
So the world is probably living through some of the most uncertain times. And during uncertain times, normally capital actually becomes very conservative. So, from a global perspective, I think the capital is looking for a safe haven and is probably unsure whether dollar is the safe haven or gold is safe haven. So, I think there's a lot of global confusion right now about capital. India finds itself in a very unique place. We are largely a domestic opportunity. Uh, 300 billion, so less than 8% of our GDP is actually exports. Out of this 300 billion, 200 billion is IT, ITES, which is outside the tariff. The remaining 80 odd billion is goods. Out of that, I think with the US, we have a gap of around 36, 40 billion, which probably we can find an answer and bridge itself. So India finds itself into a very interesting position, really, today. A large domestic market and a reasonably strong growth, which offers probably potentially the global capital to find a safe haven in India. And if the dollar, which normally appreciates 3.5% on a long-term basis against rupee, actually weakens, we might actually have a dollar hedge natural dollar hedge coming through. Given that, India seems to be an exciting place, and I think from a geopolitical perspective, almost everybody is dialing India. So that's actually the good news. What are the exciting areas in addition to anything futuristic, which is whether it is on the things that my colleagues just mentioned? I think one thing that the Ukraine-Russia war has brought out, that food security is a huge problem. Europe almost had no wheat because of the Black Sea blockade. Middle East is extremely concerned where their food security will come from. And India, along with Africa, probably has a great potential opportunity to offer to the world food security. So I think that's an area where probably a large amount of capital should find its way. Of course, we need to find what are the right areas and what is it that would actually make India far more efficient. So that's actually one area that I think I would continue to stay bullish. It's very impactful. It'll provide world a fairly secure future and can create value. I think India also, given that we have 900 odd million people still in the lower economic strata, these 900 million people have the same aspiration that the top 100 million people have. That means a large number of Indians actually aspire and want to be upwardly mobile. So the gig economy, the aspirational economy, the educational training, skilling, all those industries will continue to play a significant role if India has to actually really get most of its people into a significant amount of our capital will go into deep tech. We just heard a call from our minister talking about or exhorting entrepreneurs to come up with deep tech ideas. I think the fact that we are actually not focusing on deep tech is misplaced because there are lots of early stage initiatives in deep tech, but we need to be very conscious. Deep tech requires significant amount of ecosystem building effort, requires very long structural capital, require patience. And I think we as capital providers and young entrepreneurs who are coming as well as the government probably need to come together to build a nurturing ecosystem for deep tech entrepreneurship to scale. India has the potential, both in terms of capability, human resource, talent, and potentially will have to attract deep long-term capital for deep tech to really make a new story, write a new story. And I personally believe that will be an area where we will play a fairly significant role. It's also an area where you can make significant impact in the lives of people. Deep tech actually has a big potential to change the unequal world. So that's another area that I believe is a huge...
Totally bullish on it. We have an investment in Zero Cow Factory, which is looking to make milk without cows. I mean, look, as an individual, and I come back to conscious choices, as an individual, I think the biggest choice that we have or the largest impact we have on the planet comes through our food choices. 3/4 of carbon emissions, 2/3 of our water. comes because of just the food that we eat. It is a no-brainer that we need to move to more flexitarian diets and not just rely like on meat for our protein. So yes, there is a huge disruption even from a food security standpoint. Um, um, uh, there's a huge potential to actually ensure food security by reducing the amount like of meat that we consume, and I think alternative proteins has a huge part to play. Unfortunately, yes, the markets have turned for the sector. We've seen a lot of these companies raise money at tremendous amounts of valuation, at tremendous valuations in the early 2020s, and they've not been able to deliver. So these things are cyclical. Are we giving up on the sector? No. We still have hope. We still believe that the sector will evolve, will grow. We're seeing some phenomenal ideas coming out, and we'll continue to support it.
So one of the cultural values at Aavishkaar is our choices have to be humane. And protein is actually right now at the crossroad of being humane or not. So I think it goes back to what I said about deep tech. This actually requires serious science and capability, and this takes time. I don't think so. What is happening in alternate protein will not repeat again and again in deep tech. We need to just be patient. We need to let the ecosystem develop. We need to find capital that is compassionate about our challenges and choices and allows us to make human choices. So, are we bullish as Aavishkaar? Probably we want to make the right choices, but we are not structured right now to actually do these kinds of investments because the holding periods is going to be exceptionally long. I mentioned we require 30-year vehicles. Right now, we actually are all 10 plus 1 plus 1. So there is a structural issue here. You can't really use a 10 plus 1 plus 1 fund to invest in a 20-year investment. So from just that perspective, we would be very cautious. But at the same time, I think for the purpose of humanity, this is an area that requires significant attention, significant capital.
Okay. Imagine anyone listening to this who thinks, but I only have 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees for that matter. How can I enter this space? Can a regular investor start by playing small? Can you give any specific examples of how even small capital has made a massive impact? What should they know?
Really interesting question. I think there are some ESG mutual funds that you could actually put your money into. Some ESG focused mutual funds.
Any you could name?
I don't have names off the top of my head, unfortunately. Vineet, do you know any?
So let me start by saying, if you have 10,000, 15,000, you want to do charity, there is Social Stock Exchange. I'm actually one of the writers of that. I also sit on it. But this is actually really charity. So Social Stock Exchange is actually a great idea. We are trying to democratize philanthropy there, not impact investing, but it's a great opportunity for you to play a role in changing the world. However, if you want to actually seek returns, then probably mutual fund. There is actually an HDFC mutual fund that used to aid cancer patients. Participating in it actually allows this mutual fund to support cancer patients. So that's actually a great instrument that has already existed. There may be more new instruments that may come in. But if you want to participate in alternate investment fund structures, then regulatory limit is 1 crore. So that requires a significant capital. But even that 1 crore, your net worth has to be significantly larger for you to do it. So I would exhort those who actually have significant net worth to participate in this, but knowing fully well that this is a high risk investments. And while you may want returns, this is a highly illiquid asset, and you need to be very careful and educated about it when you participate in it. So,
should professionals handle our money in that sense? Like, is it too risky for an individual to look at it themselves? Would you trust?
It depends on your net worth and the quantum of capital you are managing. I also want to highlight this is a regulated space. This is a very long-term space. This also has actually multiple other implications. For example, income tax, filings, implications, etc. You require a fairly strong back office to support you. And therefore, generally, the right way to go is actually to find professional fund managers and let them actually manage your money, then you yourself individually walk into a minefield. So this is not easy. So I would personally let people, you can dabble through. There are venture capitalists, angel funds, etc. Dabble through them, work with them. Important not to walk into challenging areas without having the experience to manage it.
I mean, give us our due respect. We're professionals. We're in this sector. We're touting green investment. We read so much. We study so much. We think we're making the right decisions, and we are. Like our returns, like all three of us are doing phenomenal in terms of actual returns to our dollars on our investment, right? So of course, professionals is obviously the way to go.
Um, I honestly, if I'm being brutally honest, that 20 or 30K will likely do very little. And I would say if one has to think about what you can do, you can either give capital or you can give time. And I would think that what you do, I mean, this entire conversation has been that, look, behavior change is where it's at. It starts from home. If you make conscious choices, if you can influence 5 or 10 people around you, that is way, way more powerful than investing 10,000 in a mutual fund that is focused on sustainability. And so I think honestly for us, the main thing is just spreading it. Like when you're out for drinks with friends, you just start embodying this mentality of make conscious choices, do the right thing, and think about the future, vote for the right party, and make the right goals. That can go like 100, 200x what that capital investment will do.
Any innovative financial instruments you want to tell the audience about? Any green bonds, ethical mutual funds, anything they should know about?
Look, there are a lot of these like crowdfunding platforms, right? Where even for a couple of $100, you can support the innovation around products, like better products, like out there. You could probably be an investor in one of those if you really believe it. But of course, the risks, as Vineet actually said, when you've got 15, 20,000 rupees, are you willing to take that sort of a risk by spending about half of it funding a product that potentially comes to market at some point in time? And are you educated enough to be able to make that choice? I think I would go with what Aakash said, right? It's good that you want to sort of do that, and there are mainstream investments or mainstream avenues that you could put your money into. There could be, I'm not sure if there are any retail bonds today in the market which are green bonds per se that actually give you that benefit, but I'm sure there will be. The mutual fund industry is also like evolving. So making those right choices, it in itself through consumption supports these businesses, supports the sector, and that itself will start building out a lot more opportunities for you to start investing into. It's just the vicious cycle.
Rapid fire, one sentence each. If you could redesign India's investment sector from scratch, what would that look like? And what would you want to see happen in this decade?
More money and sustainability.
Well, we have to make sure that deeper pockets of local capital should invest in India and changing its own destiny. So,
I would put returns beyond just the ROI measure as something that's very important.
ease of doing business.
Ease of doing business.
Biggest myth about impact investing?
You can't make money.
It's difficult.
Yes, for tree huggers.
One impact startup that's blowing up right now. Name your favorites.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a good way. That's blowing up in a good way. One impact startup that's blowing your mind right now. Anyone who wants to go first, go for it.
Agrostar, Ergos.
In my portfolio, well, maybe I'm biased, but Electric Pay for me, they're an ecosystem builder connecting charge points to users and building a whole bunch of value-added services around it. I think they're going to be $1 billion company very soon.
Indra Water, it's crushing it and putting the spotlight on water, but also making money.
One sector to bet on by 2030.
Climate for sure.
hydrogen?
Okay, I'm going to go a little left field. I actually believe in the nuclear story, nuclear fusion technologies. I think they're going to come mainstream much faster than what we think.
One one habit to make your money matter tomorrow.
Ask the relevance of the use of your money to every money manager you keep your money with.
Don't follow the herd. Make an informed decision. Think about what you want to do, and do that. Don't follow the herd.
Listen to one thing from that CEO or one public statement before you invest your capital into a particular company.
One thing that India needs to learn from the US and Europe when it comes to impact investing? Or is there anything that India needs to learn?
I think India, impact investing was born here. And US and Europe can learn a lot about impact investing from here. What we can learn about is how to take credit for impact investing.
Very
Love
good
that.
one. I actually would turn this around and say that investors or large families or the top 10%, as what Vineet was also saying earlier, should take out of that book is, allocate more capital towards the philanthropy portion of it. I think India needs that capital source, especially for things like deep tech.
We need more capital that can de-risk first of a kind sort of innovations that happen in India. There's not enough very, very risk-taking capital or capital that doesn't require return.
Okay. One change every investor can make today to move towards impact investing.
In your IM, you have to include some section on impact metrics or sustainability and externalities of your portfolio company.
Ask yourself if you want to see the world more equal.
Yeah, like essentially have like a section in your investment decision which talks about the externalities of what that investment brings.
There's a lot of noise around AI and sustainability, considering water usage, electricity consumption, data centers. Every ChatGPT prompt, I believe, uses about 500 ml of water. Every 5 to 10 prompts, I think they use about 500 ml of water. What is your take on AI in this space? Is AI helping the space or is it harming the space? And are there any case studies where AI is actually building a more sustainable world?
So, I mean, what they say about AI around it being sort of unsustainable is definitely valid. I mean, the energy consumption for an AI prompt or prompted ChatGPT versus in Google requires significantly more sort of energy. And in general, when you're talking about GPUs and the amount of energy required for new data centers, it's considerably higher. At the same time, it can be used, and we're seeing it being used in very interesting ways. For instance, we've invested in an energy efficiency company that can use AI to basically optimize performance of appliances at a real-time level, which is something that traditionally just using algorithms, you couldn't really achieve. Now you can achieve sort of very real and efficient systems of any kind. You're seeing similar things happen in hard to decarbonize sectors or whatnot as well. So it can be a force for good, but I would strongly encourage that everyone, if you're using ChatGPT or any form of AI, that you're using it because it needs to be used rather than as a default now instead of using Google or something else.
Vineet?
See, the water and other issues that we have with anything in artificial intelligence is actually a transitional problem. So whenever you will have high intensity utilization, it will actually create heat, it will require water, it will require cooling, it will require energy. So, but as we have seen, all this can change with new technologies, advancements, etc. But if you just look at AI as a tool, would it actually make the world a better place? Potentially. One, it is taking away the God-gifted capability of being intelligent as the differentiator between human beings. So I used to say that pyramid of aspiration became flat because when mobile internet reached every household through mobile phones, specifically in India, it's very evident. Pyramid of skill and pyramid of resource exist. I think artificial intelligence will flatten the pyramid of skill also. Only 1, 2, or 3% of current India can program. With AI, probably anybody anywhere in India can program. So that flattening of the pyramid of skill is probably a great contribution to make the world equal. And hopefully, at some point of time, AI can manufacture money also. So you can have flattening of pyramid of resource as well. That's when the world will become equal. I don't have an idea whether AI will be able to do that, but I hope so. At some point of time, it does.
Are there case studies of AI being used in the sustainability or impact space?
Yes,
For the better?
well, in microfinance, we actually have AI robots actually making telecalls, being very sensitive to client situation, really changing their voice, being respectful if there is a demise or death, and playing a very interesting role in building far better rapport between a microfinance institution and its client in collections, creating efficiency and therefore dropping the price at which you charge the client. So there are case studies, but I think, as I said, these case studies will improve significantly as more and more AI becomes part of our lives.
So we embrace it. We embrace AI in the sustainability and impact space.
I think from that perspective, anything that equalize gaps between human beings is very welcome, and AI probably actually does that. Anything that actually takes away the unique advantage intelligent people have compared to average human being is actually, in my view, creating a more equitable world.
I love that. I love that perspective actually, because everyone's really just focused on water, energy, how much fossil fuel it's using, but they're not really seeing the plus side of it. As you both
Actually,
mentioned.
Jensen Huang made that statement about I added the flattening of the skill pyramid, but he was the one who mentioned whether AI can play a role in poverty. Addressing to that, he mentioned that AI can actually take the idea of skilling to every human being at the same level. So I picked it up from there.
I do have to ask about the funniest pitch or the most ridiculous pitch you've ever received from a startup or a founder.
Oh, this I've been receiving all my life, a perpetual motion machine. It is the dream of a lot of Indians to build a perpetual motion machine. Incredible dream that every part of India has. And I have got it in local language, regional languages, English, and great belief that physics is wrong and friction doesn't exist. So, and keeps coming in different ways, forms.
That's hilarious.
Tinder for bulls and cows,
What?
to match bulls to cows, because there's an undersupply of good, strong bulls and oversupply of cows.
Are you serious, Rana?
Yeah, 100%.
We actually have a movie. We have made a movie. So we generally do offsites where we actually invite our teams to build movies, give them 2 hours to basically make a movie. And Tinder for Dogs was actually one of the ideas on which we built an entire movie. And one of our partners acted as Masai-san, and actually was super successful movie. He won the best actor award also in that competition.
I love how dating apps for humans are failing since people are building it for bulls and cows and dogs. Can we have one for people in the sustainability space?
Seriously.
To
What are you
start
trying to
with.
build that, Shreya?
Yeah, no, I'm out. I'm out. So if anyone wants to take me up on that, there are 2 investors right here who are worried about my future, I hope. Anyway, my last question to all of you is, what does sustainability mean to you?
A future that is still a future to dream for.
Sustainability for me is choices. I think it just means making a more informed choice.
Sustainability for me means living on Earth for the next 5 billion plus years, assuming no natural disasters.
Okay, I think my closing question would be to anyone listening to this right now, whether they're 20 or 50, what's one message that you'd like to give them? And why should the money they invest reflect the world that they want to live in?
So there's something called Sustainable Development Goals that wants 193 governments of the world came together to imagine the world that it has never existed before since the time Homo sapiens started walking straight. You have the power to play a role in having a world without hunger, without poverty, without inequity. And therefore, as an entrepreneur, as an individual, as a participant in the economy, you can actually make the world very different in your lifetime. Time to act is now.
That's a tough one. I agree with what Vineet says, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether you are sort of it. It's the mindset. Start thinking about the mindset. Change the mindset. Think about choices. Investment avenues open up. You're able to sort of create more impact also with your dollars that you save, and that money compounds over time. So the good thing is start saving early. Use those dollars that you have to actually start supporting more businesses. But again, at the same time, as a consumer, start making right choices.
I mean, think about what you have. You have time and you have capital, and you should contribute something to this space. Honestly, we only have one Earth. There's no planet B. This is the only fundamental thing that truly matters. Money, economy, politics, all of that fades in comparison to the problem that we're dealing with today. And you want to be part of the solution. This is a global problem bringing everyone together. And so I would strongly urge everyone to do their part. If it's not through investing, then it's by influencing or providing your resources to addressing the cause.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I hope this cracks something open for everyone listening to this. I hope they look at their savings accounts, their mutual funds, their retirement fund for that matter, and even where they're putting in their money. I hope this makes people do their homework, make ethical decisions, and align their money with their values, because that is what is going to shape the future. Thank you for everything that the three of you do in making this world a better place. And I hope that 1% shift that you were talking about, we see that sooner than later in this lifetime, in our lifetimes. Because we need, as I said, we need to be so bullish on the sector, and we need this to happen sooner than later, yesterday for that matter. Because we've known that climate change has been a problem forever. I'm glad there's action, but we're not moving as fast as we should. And money is probably the biggest push accelerator that we need right now. So I hope more people join you guys on this journey that you have been the trailblazers for in this country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.